You see, the challenge we have in church is this thing called generations.
The Fresh Church Podcast.
Hey everyone, and welcome to the Fresh Church Podcast. Today I want to talk to the associate pastors out there, and I want to discuss how can I support my church leadership from the back seat. What are some ways to help me be a better leader when I'm not the driver? What lessons can we learn about leadership from the adventure of a good old-fashioned road trip? Do you like road trips? Man, I'm an adventurer. I love the open road. In college, I would drive 20 hours one way to get home for major holidays and vacations, and I love the open air, being able to be out there on the road. As a young married couple, my wife and I would go on day trips anytime I had a day off. We explore surrounding historical markers, waterfalls, and mountaintops. We check out local hotspots and amusement parks. And as our kids grew, we spent a decade driving as often as we could, 4 hours to Disneyland. It was up and down the hill through the city to the Disneyland experience. Over the last 4 years, we've been on an adventure of visiting national parks. Our goal is to visit all 63, and believe it or not, we're already halfway there. You know, that takes a lot of road trips. But as you travel, you might hear things like, "Are we there yet? What's taking so long? I have to go to the bathroom." You know exactly what I'm talking about, right? Road trips can be a lot of fun, but they can also lead to some common complaints from the passengers in the back seat. So what if I could learn everything I ever needed to know regarding leadership from a road trip? Now, in our home, I do the driving, not because I like to do all the driving, not because I want to, not because I need to. It's because my wife needs to be the navigator. She loves telling me where to go. There's a control element over it, but honestly, it takes a lot of the stress off of me. We've learned how to work well together in that capacity. And I have 3 kids. And over the years, that backseat has changed dynamics quite a bit. From figuring out where we're going to change diapers, to find the fastest bathroom stop, because they have to stop now to go to the bathroom, to planned bathroom stops, hey, in 15 minutes, to now mom and dad having to make quick bathroom stops, if you know what I mean. So on the road, I have always been the captain, the driver, the boss. Okay, I plan out where we're going. I determine our next stop. I monitor the gas and the time that it takes. I occasionally lash out irrationally to the other people in the car. I'm not perfect. Okay, but in church world, I have never held that position. I have always served as an associate pastor. That means that sometimes I sat in the passenger seat. I'm helping guide our fearless leader, but often I've been in the back seat. And today I find myself wondering what my lead pastor must have been thinking the whole time that I was sitting back there. So we're going to talk about leading from the back seat. How can I support my leadership from the back seat? Ways to respect and help the driver, your lead pastor, as you make it to your final destination with some of your own ideas injected along the way. So let's have some fun. We're going to walk through 12 leadership principles that can be based on the top 12 statements said from the back seat. Are you ready? Here we go. The number 1 statement from the back. You've heard it before. Are we there yet? Perhaps the most classic and universal road trip complaint, right? Often repeating itself throughout the journey. Are we there yet? Are we there yet? Are we there yet? Are we there yet? Here's the word you can learn from that. Patience, right? Okay, like how frustrating is it to hear that over and over again? You know, something that we need to learn is patience. Because when we ask, are we there yet too often, it creates frustration. You need to realize that the journey takes time, especially if you're on major trips. If this trip is multi-days, or in church world, this could be seasons, even yearly. You need to realize that it's going to take time. Last year, we traveled from Ohio to California. We did not fly. We drove it over 2,000 miles. We visited 5 national parks along the way until we got to the family camp in California that we love going to. We broke the trip up into days. We had an itinerary. We knew how far we were going to make it each day, what we were going to visit, where we were going to stay. Then we shared the plan. Everybody knew the schedule. We had a plan and we stuck to it for the most part. We had some variables in there, planned variables, but the trip was good to go. Yet the question still came up. How long until we get to the next stop? Well, we can discuss that, but how far are we traveling today? Well, if you look at your sheet, you can see the question still came. How long is the trip going to take? It was still there. You see, we have to learn ahead of time how to put together a plan, how to ask questions about this schedule. Hey, what's today look like? How far are we planning on going today? How many different stops are we planning on doing today? Sometimes it's a roadmap, being able to see the direction that we're going. Sometimes there's timetables. How long is this going to take? How long is that going to take? Let me encourage you, as a leader in your church, working with your lead pastor, it is very important for you to be willing to ask questions. The last thing you want to be is that staff member who's asking, are we there yet? Are we there yet? Are we there yet? Find out what the roadmap looks like. Find out what the plan is. Talk to your pastor. Have patience. Trust that he has a trip already figured out. He has a good idea of where he's going. And you know there's going to be some issues and challenges along the way, but you need to trust him. So instead of complaining about if we're going to get there or not, ask him questions. Hey, how far are we planning on going with this project? How far are we planning on getting today? What does the next step look like in the vision that we're rolling out? And when you begin talking about the destination, it's a lot easier to get pastor to share because he's excited about the destination as well. All right, number 2, you might have heard this from the backseat. I'm hungry, right? I mean, snacking is a big part of a road trip. If you don't have snacks in the car, you've probably never road trip before. And that backseat passenger is always asking for something, demanding snacks, wanting something along the way. In church world, that kind of equates to, I need dollars, I need budget, feed me now, right? Okay, it's good to ask, but often you got to be careful of the results you get. Okay, you got to watch a tolerance level of that driver. If you just share with them, hey, I'm hungry, when's our next stop? That's a completely different than a whining person in the back seat. Be careful. You might just get the stale chips from the trunk, and that's the last thing you want. So learn how to ask without being demanding. Is this something that I could really use? How can I express it in a way? And then when's the best time to express that? How about discussing the expense of this? Is there a good time we can sit down and talk about that? Are there ways that I could assist you with this, maybe in helping with the vision or helping raise funds for it? How does this affect the overall budget of the church? Because I know, lead pastor, you're balancing a lot. I've just got one small budget that I'm keeping track of. Is this something that I can split with another department? You see, as you begin to talk finances, you should never talk about it in a whining way. Don't complain that your budget's not big enough. Don't complain that you don't have the resources that you need. Investigate. Find out what that next step looks like. And be thankful for the snacks that you have because your pastor's already blessed you with a budget. Be sure to use it wisely. All right, so we're talking about how I can support my leadership from the backseat. And some of the things that we've learned can be best described from backseat complaints. So here's number 3. Can we stop to go to the bathroom? I gotta go potty. When are we gonna take a bathroom break? It seems like frequent restroom stops can be a source of frustration for some of the drivers. Well, let's ask the question. Why do you have to go? Because of the previous statement. You had snacks, you had water, you had something to eat, and now you need to dispose of it, correct? That's why you have to go to the bathroom. And there are some times we've got to pull over right along immediately and get it taken care of. And there are times we can wait. But no matter what, there is a point where we have to get rid of all of the waste. Same way in church. There are times to discuss removing programs or leaders that are toxic. There are times that we've got to get rid of some of the things because of some of the new things that we're ingesting. But we need to make sure that there's a process to that. There's a right time to have that conversation. Ask before you start freaking out. Let them know ahead of time, hey, there's a potential concern I want to share with you, Pastor, some things I'd like to discuss with you. You know, right now, my older kids, they give me a warning. They're like, hey, Dad, how far until the next bathroom stop? Because I'm probably going to need to go fairly soon, right? It's part of being more mature, being able to manage those urges. There are times to discuss removing or dealing with toxic areas. Choose them wisely. Discuss privately or in the right setting. And let me tell you, never drop a bomb just before they're getting ready to preach on a Sunday morning. That's the last thing your pastor wants to deal with right then, okay? Make sure you choose the right time to have that conversation. Number 4, it's too hot in here. It's too cold in here. Disputes over the temperature inside the car can often be a common complaint. I'm sure you've had that before. I mean, when I was growing up, it was the window. Is it up? Is it down? Is the heat on? Is it not on? Now it's the complete temperature, right? I mean, we rented a car once that had everything. It had heated seats. It had air-conditioned seats. It had individualized temperature for each of the different passengers, including control of their own temperature and fan. Man, my family was in heaven until we got back in our car after the trip. For us, it's a real simple rule. It's my rule. The driver controls the temperature. So bring a blanket, because I like it a little chilly. When it comes to church world, facilities challenges can be some of the biggest things that people fight over, the frustrations that occur with that. They can come up in staff meetings. They can come up in complaints to pastor. Who's using what? Who's using it when? Who didn't clean up afterwards? What can we change? How can I get my way? No one seems to like it the way that it is. And your lead pastor is hearing people discuss this all the time. And there's no way to make everyone happy. There's no perfect temperature for that road trip. You see, I need to realize that the driver's in charge. And I can let them know if I've experienced displeasure, but then I have a responsibility to be a grown-up, to respond, to respect them, and to adjust accordingly. I need to be aware that there's other people in the car with me, and it can't just be the temperature that I want. And more importantly, I need to go along with whatever the driver says. Number 5, I'm bored. Ever heard that one before? Backseat passengers often get antsy, especially on long drives, and they might complain about a lack of entertainment. Even with their devices, they can get bored with what they have. I want new things. I want to try something else. We're not doing enough. Can we change up what we're doing to something new? I say, well, look out the window. There's always new things out there. No, I already did that. You see, the driver needs to stay focused on the journey. And you're just along for the ride, but sometimes it can feel a little boring along the way. So we can add road trip games. We can sing songs. We can do a little hunting for license plates and other things. There's times for that entertainment. But then there's times just to let the driver drive. In church world, sometimes it can get boring within your area and you want to spice it up. You want to add new things. You want to look at new ways of doing ministry, adding to the plate what's already there. Realize that your pastor's on a journey as well. They're preparing for Sunday. They're preparing for the next board meeting. They're preparing for their vision and the direction that the church is going. Let me just recommend this. If you're getting bored, if you're getting antsy and you want to introduce new things, get a hobby. Okay? Find some things outside your job description. Go do other things out there. Hang out with other friends. Do things outside of the church so that all of your energy isn't put into the next thing that you want to accomplish at church. Find a hobby outside of the church. Spend time with other people and get some of the pressure off of the driver, off your lead pastor, so they can drive this trip the direction they need to go. All right, number 6. Turn the music down. That's what the older people seem to say, right? In the back, turn it up a little bit. I can't quite hear it. Or this one. This playlist is terrible. Can you skip this song? The eternal struggle of control of the car's volume, okay, what musical preferences that we have, the differences between one passenger and the next, what those chosen tunes are that you're going to listen to. Now it's a road trip. You've got to have music. I mean, when I was a kid, when I had kids, someday when I have grandkids, music will always be a part of our road trips. I mean, we make special road trip playlists, certain songs that we like, certain feels that we have. Depending where we're going, we're going to play special songs accordingly. Some of those songs, they're a little outdated. Some of them, they're up to date. Some are upbeat, some are slow. Now, there are lots of different kinds of playlists. Sometimes I download those playlists. I want to make sure if I'm going to a national park where there's no signal, I can still listen to the music. Sometimes we've got cheesy songs mixed in there. Sometimes I have to update those playlists and get rid of some of those cheesy songs. Sometimes we have those favorite songs, those songs that get us excited every time we go ahead and we play that song. Everybody starts singing along. We have memories attached to that. You know, church music is no different. Old, new, loud, quiet, what style, what feel. You know, I honestly think one of the major reasons why people pick a church and possibly why they leave a church is because of the music, which you would think that should have very little control over. It should be about the Word of God, what's being taught, if they've got relationship or not. But yet music still seems to play a big role. And as a staff person, Sometimes you get an opportunity to speak into that. And other times you just interject. You see, the challenge we have in church is this thing called generations. You see, there's an older crowd that likes a particular type of music. There's a middle-aged crowd that likes another kind of music because they have memories that go back to that. There's a younger crowd that they want everything that's up to date and they want it to be like a rock concert at their church. Then there's an even younger crowd that they want to be fun, full of actions and lots of activity and just all kinds of giddiness within it. What music do you play? How do you mix it up? And sometimes on that road trip of church life, music can become a major point of strife. Well, if you're not the music minister over that area, can I encourage you to be very careful what you speak into that? And if you have the opportunity, do it with love. Music can divide, but music can also bring us together as we worship our God. But just remember this, your driver, that lead pastor, they've got their own opinions when it comes to music. Maybe they like it to be more diversified. Maybe they like a particular style. Whatever the case is, remember that they control the music and they can always shut it off. You don't want to push them that far. Help them drive, help them lead the way by being willing to go, I'll give up on things that are important to me musically and listen to them on my own. I don't have to do it in church. Just roll wherever the road trip is taking you. All right, so we're looking at leadership principles to be learned from Backseat comments. And as we talk about how can I support my leadership from the back seat. We're on to number 7 right now. Are we lost? Why did we take this route? Concerns about navigation and getting off track can lead to backseat driving, unwanted directions or advice from people that aren't giving them who should be giving them. Ever heard the cliche backseat driver? Yeah, there's a reason that we don't speak positively of that. There's nothing worse than the person behind you who's kicking you, by the way, questioning your driving ability. They have no idea where they're going, but they sure want to give you their opinion on it. Some of the biggest fights that my wife and I have had on road trips have been about directions. Something as simple as, you should have turned here, or why didn't you turn here, or why didn't you tell me to turn here? Even over as simple as a parking spot. Sometimes that's been some of our biggest fights. Navigation. Your pastor doesn't want to keep hearing that you are questioning where they're going, what direction it is. Not only do you not know where they're going, but sometimes they're not always certain either. So they don't need to be reminded of that fact. Ask questions along the way. As you're going through this discovery, this journey, make sure that it's focused on where you're going, not reactionary. Pastor, when you started this journey, what adjustments have you made along the way? Where would you like to see as our final destination? What challenges do you see coming up? How can I help with detours and road construction waits as we go through this journey together? Simple questions about the journey itself will help you even when they're trying to navigate what direction to go. Sometimes the best thing you can do is not stress them out. They're the ones in the front seat. They're the ones making the choices. Encourage them along the way. Number 8, can we please stop at fill in the blank? There's a location that they want to go to, and usually it's as you're driving by it. Can we stop there? I want to go there. And yes, that can be exciting, the excitement of seeing that brand new spot, but those quirky attractions can also cause other feelings as well. So my wife, when we travel, she loves taking selfies in front of state signs. We pull up to a state, we all jump out of the car, run up there, take a picture under the sign, jump back in the car, and try to safely get back on the freeway again. My kids about half the time participate. The other half, they're like, oh, really? It's that impulsive stop as we're getting closer. Now, originally, it irritated me. I was like, why are we stopping? Why? Take a picture as we're driving by. Make a note. Hey, we're in this state now. Now I've realized it's important to my wife. It's a big deal to her. So I want to make sure that I'm pulling off to the side of the road. I'm even paying attention. How close are we getting? That I'm not diving off the side. I'm prepared ahead of time in the right-hand lane so I can pull off. We can take the picture and then get back on track. One of my favorite quotes from social media I saw was the driver who isn't bothered by the fact that you want to stop. He's bothered by the fact that now he's going to have to once again pass all those people that he just passed that were in the way. I know I feel that way a lot of times. Sometimes when I pull over, it feels like I'm losing traction. I'm losing the energy of where we're going. And so when I'm in leadership and I want to make that quick pit stop, maybe that's for, hey, I have an idea. Sometimes our lead pastor gets scared by that comment, by the way. Hey, I have an idea for a new outreach we can do. I have an idea for a new event that we can do. I have an idea for a fill in the blank. It's like that crazy road trip pull off right there. And if it doesn't tie into the vision, if it doesn't tie into the trip, it can be so stressful on that pastor, especially when they have to say no to you over and over and over again. And in ministry, we can get those crazy ideas. That's okay. But make sure that you ask. Don't demand it. And don't get upset if you don't get your way. You see, the pastor has a destination in mind. He knows the time that it's going to take. He knows what that trip entails. And you know what? Maybe that idea you have, there is time to make that stop. Or better yet, it ties into the trip, especially if it includes a bathroom break along the way. All right, number 9. I need a charger for my device. That's something new. I didn't hear when I was a kid. We had good old AA batteries that we put into our devices. Now there's charging cables. And it never fails when you get on the road, somebody forgot their charging cord, or a cord's not working anymore, the plug-in's not working anymore, and all the batteries seem to die at the same time. We all start out great. 2 hours into it, everybody's device is almost dead. Now let me share this with you. The driver's device is pretty important because the directions are on there. Okay, letting him know where he's supposed to turn, right, left, how far to that next destination, how far to that next bathroom, how far to the next restaurant to eat at. You want to make sure that device has plenty of power, which means you need to plan accordingly with the rest of the devices in the car. And my wife is really good at this. She makes sure that we rotate through who's plugged in and who isn't plugged in. We work it in shifts. Well, from this in the church world, there's 2 different leadership elements that I want to share with you. The first one is don't use up all of your pastor's resources, all of your pastor's energy. Don't drain them and leave them empty all of the time. Come with energy. Ideas, though, can be exhausting. There are times if you're wanting to meet all the time with your pastor and you got all these great things that you want to talk about and all these things you want to do, or you just want to tell them about your life and you're taking up all of their time, you're taking up their energy, it's exhausting and their battery starts to run low. The second element is there are times that you need to be refreshed. You need to get away. You can be spiritually drained, mentally drained, maybe just exhausted from time and energy of things that are going on. Well, if you have every conversation with your pastor, how tired you are, how exhausted you are, how worn out you are, that's draining on them as well. But you need to make sure if your battery is running low, that you take time to recharge, that you get the spiritual energy that you need to be able to do ministry effectively. And one of the best ways to monitor this is by having a coach. Having someone besides your pastor that can speak into your life and let you know, hey, you need recharged. You need to take this perspective. I'm hearing you say this often. That probably means you need a break. Hey, well, I would love to have that conversation with you if you're looking for a coach. Check us out at www.freshman.org and make sure as you're going that you don't drain your battery. So how can I support my leadership from the back seat? Well, here we go, number 10. You may have heard this in the back seat before. This is my space. So-and-so keeps touching me. So-and-so keeps taking my things. If you've got kids, you heard those things, right? Sometimes the drama in the backseat puts the driver over the edge to a place where they're ready to pull over and put the fear of God into those kids. Sibling rivalries, sibling challenges, personal space violations, they can all be reasons for contempt in the backseat. You know, my oldest two were little. I would hear conversations in the backseat when my 4-year-old son would try to teach my 1-year-old daughter new words, big words, usually dinosaur words like say brontosaurus, say pterodactyl. And the little 1-year-old's trying to say brontosaurus. And after 15, 20 minutes, pretty soon my 1-year-old would just turn her head the other direction and go to sleep. She was done. She wanted nothing to do with it. It was simpler then. As those kids got older, pretty soon the conversations in the back turned into spaces, turned into the areas they were in. Then add a third child. You put a car seat back there and the spaces got smaller. And as the kids got older, those issues in the back seat, well, they grew as the kids grew. And then you add a third child into that, put a car seat in the middle. Yeah, we have defined space, but that space is significantly less. And as that child grew, pretty soon that booster seat, you had cute little things that you could put cups in. Those cup holders, yeah, all the kids were fighting over those 2 cup holders. And then as that middle child grew, this is my armrest, back off. You know, it's interesting. Years later, My kids are grown now, and we all jumped in the car a couple days ago. And my youngest, there's no way I'm sitting in the middle. And there was a fight over who was sitting where. The backseat antics, they really haven't changed much. Well, fighting between associates on staff can be just as big of a headache for your pastor. Students versus kids, worship arts versus, well, anybody needing sound or media or music, women's ministry versus any other events surrounding a women's ministry event. How about any department that has to come in after the students were in there? Pretty soon you have departmental strife. It's like sibling rivalry in the back seat of the car. And pretty soon people are complaining. They didn't put my thing back that they borrowed. They left this room a mess. They didn't tell me they were going to be here. We're scheduled at the same time. They're using my volunteers. It turns into that same sibling whining in the back seat to that lead pastor who's just trying to get down the road. So let me recommend this, leader. Work out your differences before they ever make it to staff meeting. That is not the place to bring up these fights. Talk to the person ahead of time. In fact, if you want to talk to your pastor about him, if you want to bring him in, that's fine. But make sure that you've already had a discussion first. In fact, I love to be able to show my pastor, hey, this was a situation that came up and this is how we solved it. I like to let my senior pastor know what's going on. There's a couple reasons for that. One, he's going, hey, great job, guys. You're problem solvers. The other thing is, sometimes he's looking at him going, wow, you certainly took advantage of the other one. And then there's a third one. The one that's giving him a heads up, there's about to be a headache down the road because the solution you guys came up with, honestly, probably is not going to work. But at least he has an idea that you're working on it. Take that sibling rivalry in the back seat and get rid of it in the church. There's no place for it on this road trip. Work it out with that person back there and don't stress your pastor with that. Number 11, I don't care. Well, when would you hear something like that? Usually when the driver wants input from the rest of the passengers. Something like, hey, where would you like to eat? Oh, I don't care. Where would you like to stop? I don't care. You know what? Actually, that becomes really frustrating to that person up front, to that driver. You see, they're usually asking the question out of one of two reasons. The first one is they're tired of making decisions. They've been making decisions this whole time, and they would just like somebody else to make that decision. Or the second one is they genuinely care about you. And they want your opinion so that they can do it. When I'm asking, what do you want to eat? It's because, you know what? I love you and I want to eat at a place that you want to eat at. You know, in church world, it can be that way too. Sometimes pastors will ask us things. And we have to be very careful that we don't have an I don't care attitude. Oh, pastor, whatever you want, doesn't matter. Even as simple if the pastor says, hey, let's go get coffee. Where do you want to go? Man, have a place ready to go. He's got enough things on his mind. He doesn't need to figure that out. I have learned where my pastor's favorite spots were. So when he said, hey, where do you want to go for lunch? I'd be like, well, either this place or this place. Knowing the second place was his favorite, we always went there. Okay, it made him feel like, oh, Tony's opinion matters. Tony, I get to be someplace that Tony wants to eat at, but it's also the place that I want to eat at. Find out what options are out there. Look at the different things that are there. And then just realize sometimes pastor wants your input because he values it. Make sure you have something to share, something intelligent to share. All right, number 12. We're almost done as we're looking through this road trip of life and how we can learn from that as leaders. Number 12, I don't like the person driving the car. I don't like the direction we're going. I don't like these road trips. Criticizing the driver's skills is a delicate matter, and it can sometimes cause some major issues on a trip. What if it's just as simple as you're in the wrong car? Maybe it's as simple as this isn't a road trip that you're supposed to go on. You know, sometimes there's seasons in life where you go, maybe my assignment at this church under this leadership is done, and I need to look for what that next assignment is. What does that look like? You know, in real life, there are some road trips that we take that certain members of our family come with us or don't come with us. Sometimes it's just a husband and wife trip. Sometimes when it comes to road trips in your church, it could be that that's not the sphere or the lane you're supposed to be in. And other times it could be, yep, I've come to a point now that I need to start looking for a different family to road trip with. Well, let me encourage you with this. If this ever comes up, make sure you do it with the best intentions and the best heart and finish strong. Make sure you finish the trip you're on right now and make that decision before you make the next road trip. There's nothing worse than being in the middle of a road trip and suddenly go, I'm out, I'm done. It leaves a driver up in the air. It leaves your church up in the air. Where are we going? How are we going to continue with this? When you quit before a major project, it leaves everybody hurting. Finish that project, finish well, and then go, hey, now that this trip's done, I think it's time for me to look for another place. There was a season in our life when my son was getting older. He was in his senior year of high school. And I mentioned before, we used to go to Disneyland all the time. And during his senior year, he shared with us, you know what? I just don't really want to go to Disneyland this year. And he started sharing things like the magic was lost and other things. And honestly, as I look back on it, I think he was just tired of being around his sisters and his mom and his dad. Like he was ready to go off to college and start his own life and go down that road and 4 hours to Disneyland and a crazy hotel and back again. It was no longer fun for him. And for a season, he didn't come. Now, I'm glad he told me this because I didn't spend all the money on his season pass. I didn't get frustrated when he didn't want to come with us. It didn't make those road trips awkward and upsetting and lots of fights. It was for a season. And a couple years later, we all went back together to Disney and we loved it because we took a break. There's nothing wrong with that. But make sure whatever you're doing, you do it well. Finish strong. Road trips are some of the greatest experiences our family has. There may be times in your family where you get to enjoy a road trip. Take advantage of it. Sometimes it's full of complaints. Sometimes it's not a positive thing. Something we've chosen to do over the years is to celebrate the awesomes and forget about the awfuls. Learn from them to be able to make them into a new adventure next time. Grab a hold of all of those good memories as we plan our next trip. Support your leadership from the back seat. You can still be a part of the journey, even though you weren't driving. Just be careful on what you say and how you express yourself. And remember to do your best from the back seat to make your next journey a successful journey.